You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
And we'd like to welcome you to our show. I'm
glad you welcomed everybody, because I was thinking today, not a lot of people know me from when I lived in Alaska.
What?
And so when you see AK Mike, you might think like AK-47. I mean, because I live in Texas, and Texas is sort of a gun state. So I just want to be clear, the AK isn't about AK-47 rat-a-tat. It is about being in Alaska, from being in Alaska.
I gotcha. I'm glad you cleared that up.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it was a big deal.
Well, I don't know. Jay calls me AZ Mike, so I don't know what AZ stands for, but probably Arizona.
I don't know either. That is your problem to deal with. I was just talking about my particular issue. So
that's fine.
He's got his own crosses to bear.
Off my chest. Thanks for letting me start off that way.
Exactly. All right. Well, April is a good month. I think one of our staff had a birthday this month. Is that correct? No? Maybe? Jay, did you get something for your birthday? Did you get something for your birthday? It was in March.
In March? In March, not in April.
Okay, March.
That's why I was giving you a weird look. Like, who you guys are in May.
I am already. See,
who's in between?
I am already.
You're already in April.
I'm already recording episodes for April. What am I saying? Okay, in March. March is. This is March, right? Yes. It's been one of those days. Okay, so first of all, happy birthday to Jay. He had a birthday today. What did you get?
Hey. What did I get? Oh, I got a box that came in, and I said, hey, this is from like Servo World. Mm-hmm. I don't remember ordering anything from Servo World. I'm scratching my head. And that's when I totally forgot about my birthday, folks. That's how old I am. I just was like, hey, it's my birthday. And I walked in
so many years.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I opened it up and took a couple of pictures and said, hey, look what somebody sent me free samples in the mail, and sent it out to these two guys. And then I got a reply back.
Right.
So thank you very much for my birthday present. Thank you, guys.
Jay got a couple of servos for his Tony. He actually, when he came out to the Electric Festival, and we picked up some new airplanes a while back, and Jay was able to crate some of his home, some of the ones that he brought back home. And one of them was a Kawasaki, what is that, a KI-62, right? Something like that?
Yeah.
And it's a Tony. And anyway, so Mike and I decided that Jay's been struggling with crashing Warbirds for crappy servos. And last time I was up there and flew one of his airplanes, it crashed because of a crappy servo. And so Mike and I were like, hey, this guy needs
servo wasn't crappy, Mike.
It was the installer.
Servo head was crappy.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
Oh.
Well, if you remember,
really
the head,
go
it wasn't
to that
like
detail.
the typical. Well, it wasn't the typical servo arm. Remember?
Yeah.
You could adjust. It was one.
It was
and I tried it out because I'd never seen one like this before.
Right.
And it was one of the arms that you can actually adjust the arm itself back in and out along the spline. Right. So you just push out how far.
Yes, the length of it.
Yeah, the length of it. So if you wanted it longer or shorter, you would push it along, put it in the slot, and then screw it down. And
no more glue to make it longer or whatever.
No.
Yeah, it just either it vibrated loose or whatever happened, and just worked its way loose, and boop, boop, that head popped off, and happened to be on the elevator.
Fell off, so you basically got screwed.
He did get screwed.
I got screwed. Yeah.
But I will tell you, it was a beautiful, beautiful aileron roll into an Immelman right into the ground.
So for a minute there, I thought he was really doing something.
Oh yeah, I was really impressive. So, and actually, it's funny because right after that happened, and this has been a few years ago, but right after that happened, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jay and I were looking at something, and there was, we kind of send each other, items that we find, and there was an old World War II training video for a P-51 that showed how to do a loop, and it showed that if you started at like 10,000 feet and did a loop, you'd wind up back at 10,000, but if you started at 5,000, you would wind up in the ground. And it was basically this pamphlet that they sent people that said, hey, just understand that it takes a certain amount of space to do this loop. And I sent it to Jay. Anyway, he thought, I don't know if he saw humor in it or not.
That doesn't make sense. That's not really true, right?
Yeah, no,
I
can
see where the air density changes and stuff. So
no, it's true. They wanted the guys to start their loops at a certain altitude so that they didn't crash into the ground. Because if you start
if you start at 5,000, you can end it at 5,000 if you're doing your loop right.
You could yes, that is correct. But it takes a certain amount it takes a certain amount to get back, and the way that they were doing their loops, I don't know. Anyway, it was kind of a funny story.
Okay.
I didn't mean to derail myself on loops.
And the big thing to remember about those guys when they used to fly, how many actual flight hours they actually had when they got in the seat of that
not
cockpit.
very many, right?
No.
A lot of them didn't have more than 25 to 35 hours.
Wow.
Right.
Total time. And then they're in the cockpit. So I was reading a thing about the Red Tails, right? So when they got the newest model of P-51s, well, one of the things they didn't tell them per se was that they would go and do a test flight. So they would go, okay, well, here's the plane, go fly it. Everything kind of works like this and like this. Okay, go fly. And they were in theater. And so one of the things they didn't know about, there was a auxiliary fuel tank that sat right behind them. And depending on whether that thing was full or not, definitely changed the characteristics of the plane. And it was one of those things they didn't have. Yeah. And they didn't have a big sticker stuck,
make sure this is full or
saying,
empty.
hey, if this is full, make sure you don't do X, Y. Yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of guys would jump in the plane and go, woohoo, and go roaring off. And if it was when it was full or when it was empty was when it was bad. But, it definitely changed the characteristics of the plane. And a lot of guys.
I thought you were saying that the guys that said, "Oh, here's the plane. Go ahead and jump in," and they stand in the corner cringing, waiting for it to explode or something, because they don't know how good of a plane it was going to be.
Well, the bad part was that waiting for it to explode while they're in it, while you're trying to fly.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's what I'm saying. Compared today, hey, you get so many hours of flight time in the sim, and you may have hundreds of hours before you actually touch the real plane.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to be in the real plane for just an hour or two, and it's
some respect to those guys who flew that stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
It's like if you made it, you made it.
Yeah. While you're talking on that, and this is just a thought, because I was reading something the other day, and it was talking about military servicemen, and it was a guy who basically said that he had done something for a serviceman, right? He had gone out and helped him do something. And this service guy had helped him do something, and he said, "What can I do to repay you?" Right? And it was very interesting. I thought, this is something that I think I'm going to do from here on out. But what he told the guy was, this serviceman, an older gentleman, came back and said, "The only thing that I request that you do is if you run into a Vietnam vet, welcome him home." Which I thought was the coolest thing ever, because those guys didn't get welcomed home, right? So from here on out, go out.
Right.
I will tell you, just the other day, my wife and I were out and about, and there was a guy. We were going to lunch at a restaurant, and there was a guy sitting on the bench, and he had a little Navy hat on. And when I walked by, I asked him, I said, "Are you a Vietnam vet?" And he said, "No, I'm a Desert Storm guy." And I said, "Well, welcome home either way," right? He wasn't the Vietnam, but I did ask him, and I thought, I'm going to try and do this every time. And, but he still looked at, but it was kind of cool. He looked at me, he goes, "Thanks." And it was different from "thank you for your service," because everybody was kind of saying that to him. And sometimes I feel that's a little hollow, but we kind of got off on a tangent. But anyway, I thought that was kind of nice, so I'm going to throw that out there. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask all of our viewers to comment. Right? We have a YouTube channel, or, if you want to comment on our Facebook listeners page, and let us know if you think it's a good idea or what you do, or, we need your comment to tell us, hey, that was a great idea or it wasn't a great idea. But I like it, and if you think it's worth it, then, give us a thumbs up and let us know how you feel.
That's a good, I'm glad you said that, Mike, because I feel like sometimes, we enjoy doing this. Like, this is great,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, folks listen to us. They spend our time listening to us. It would be great if we knew what it was they wanted to hear more about. We've asked this before, I think, and we have gotten some comments, but I think we maybe forgotten or gotten behind on the idea that we just asked that out loud. Like, hey, if you don't like the shirt I'm wearing, like let me know,
right?
Because I won't change it anyway. But but it would be good to know.
So that's a good segue, because I kind of had a little bit of drama that I kind of want to bring up, and we
bum bum bum.
Okay, I'm just going to say it out because I don't know if any of these guys are listening. They probably aren't, but this is kind of what happened. I five with a group on Tuesdays, or I try to go out there as often as I can. I've been working on Tuesdays lately, but I had a Tuesday off and I went out there. And when I got there, all the guys were standing around, and there was all these people in this standing in the middle of the field.
You mean like in the grass?
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, we have a park, and there's a sidewalk that goes the outside of the park, and there's a big, huge open area on the inside of the park that's designated a flying area. Well, there's groups of people that are all standing in the middle of the flying area, which we see happen quite often if we have dog walkers or they have a dog training class, because it's not just a flying park, it's a public park that's designated that we can fly.
Got to share.
And we share with everybody. Sometimes they're having a flag football game or whatever, or they're doing some sort of a practice. Most people know on Tuesdays we're there, the bench that we sit at. You guys have both been there. You kind of know it. But most people that walk or get out and do their dogs, they understand that we go out there on Tuesdays and fly. So in this particular case, I got out there, and there was all these people standing around. And I thought, oh, what are they doing? They're having a contest or something. What are these guys doing? And I just thought it was my group. So when I walked up to my group, they're all kind of standing around, and I'm like, what's going on? And they go, we don't know. These people are standing in the middle of the field, and we can't fly. And I go, well, why are they standing out there? Well, then I realized that each one of these groups had DJI drones, like several at a time. And there was a guy running around between the two. And so one of the other gentlemen in my group said, yeah, they're having a training class. And I'm like, well, if they're having a training class, why are they standing in the middle of the field? And so, there's this guy obviously walking between the groups. He looks like he's in charge. He came over, and he kind of saw us standing there, and he says, I just want to ask you guys not to fly over the top of us. We can all share the field. It's a big field. We can all fly, but please don't fly over the top of us. And I said, well, that's kind of hard to do when you're standing in the middle of the flying field, right? And he goes, well, I don't understand why, you have some attitude. We're all just trying to get along. It's a big field. And I said, yeah, but you're
I like that attitude.
The field is big, right? I mean, you're talking a couple, it's at least 800 or 900.
Acres.
Yeah, at least 3 acres worth of land. And we use the airspace over all of that land, and we try not to fly over people. But at the same time, you're standing right in the middle of where the field is, putting your drone about 20 or 30 feet in the air. So and because you're spaced out amongst each other,
covering smack dab in the middle.
You're basically covering our whole area. And he goes, well, we can all share. And I said, yeah, I don't understand why you're not standing back on the sidewalk, right, where we're standing. That way everybody can share the airspace out in front of you. And he was like, well, you don't have to, this is a big park. Just find another area. And I kind of went, it's the whole area. I don't think you're understanding. You're asking me to go fly an airplane that, is very in a smaller area, and I just don't get it, And so he's like, okay, whatever, and he walked away, and so I didn't think anything of it. We were all standing there talking, and so next thing I know, these guys pick up their drone and they kind of come back to the sidewalk. So one of them went to the far side of the group, the far side of the park, and the other guys went to the side. And then there was another group that came up and stood fairly close to where we were. And I was like, okay, thank you, And so they ran out and they were doing their thing. And evidently, it was a training class for an insurance company who was training new operators to go out and do insurance claims. That's the gist of what I got. So these are new pilots. They just bought this $2,000 DJI drone, and they're learning how to control it from an instructor who has, part 14 or whatever, part 17, whatever the number is, license, right? He's got the drone pilot's license, so he's directing them all. Well, as soon as they got out of the way, we jumped in and we started flying around. Well, then he comes over, and we're flying airplanes, right? So we're using the whole space. We're kind of going around. We're flying. And he comes over, and he goes, dude, I don't understand what the problem is here. I asked you guys not to fly over the top of us. And I said, well, we're not. We're flying in the middle, right? I mean, that's kind of why we wanted you to move back, is so we could use the whole middle. And he's like, dude, you guys are unbelievable, you know? And I was like, wait, why am I unbelievable? We're here to fly. We can all share the space. He said, I told you we had new drone pilots over here, and you guys are getting too close to us. And I said, well, we're kind of at we're all at a fairly larger advanced. We're not all new pilots. Your pilots are new, but we're not. And about that time, one of the guys in the group, jumped on his FPV and started flying around FPV, and that just totally freaked him out. And now he was just kind of, ranting and raving about the fact that we were being inconsiderate because we were flying FPV. And I told the guy, I was like, dude, he's flying FPV. He can see where you're standing. He's just flying the perimeter, and he's flying the outside of the perimeter to stay away from the airplanes that are on the inside. This is how we share the field. We do this all the time. Just because you just showed up today and decided to stand in the middle of the field, I don't understand. But anyway, it was kind of a drama thing. I don't really understand, why those guys felt that way, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, did it seem like we were unreasonable, or were they being unreasonable?
Well, I thought it was interesting for him to say, this is a big field. You can use the other parts of it. Just don't fly over us. So I think what that means is you would stand with him in his space and then fly around the middle of that space. I mean, that would be my first thought, right? My second thought would be all right, what does he feel is the right place? And I feel like the answer you might have got from him was, well, just not here. And,
yeah.
Just everything he said was stuff he could apply to himself that he chose not to. This is a big field. You could fly anywhere. True for him, too. He can fly off by the sidewalk and forward out into the field where everybody flies. What does over him mean? Does that mean you can't fly 100 feet over him at all? Right. Where's the wall he creates? Is it as far as they end up going? And then that way, if they go up to the other side of the field, then you're not allowed to fly over that? Like, to me, it really felt to me like he was just really frustrated because he had hoped it was going to be a serene experience for him, that he's going to have complete control of this park, and nobody was going to be there. But he failed to realize that people share that space. And then he tried to put that failure, in my mind, on you.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. I'm going to ask our listeners once again to, share your comments with us on either our YouTube channel or our listeners group page. Tell me what you think, because I don't know. I kind of was a little snippy with the guy when, he kind of got into my face, or at least telling me that it was unbelievable that we weren't sharing the space. I think that he wanted us to go somewhere else, but maybe I could have handled it better. So let me know how you guys think I should have handled it. Right?
Maybe you can get him on. We can interview him.
Well, I tell you what, Mike, the big thing that I liked about this is, so the guy came to you, right? And you not that you come there every Tuesday to fly. It's maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Recently with work and everything else. So you're rarely out there. And I just love how the guy homes in on you. You just have the scent on you or something.
I must have, because I literally had just walked up.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah, I don't understand. But and what you're saying is correct, is because I hadn't been there in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and so when I did walk up, everybody kind of turned to me and said, "Hey," and they're shaking my hand and they're all kind of standing around me talking. So maybe it gave that guy the impression that I was the grand poobah or whatever, I mean, so and just because, I don't know, maybe I'm the tallest one in the group, I really don't understand. And I did ask the question, why are they standing in the middle of the field? And he may have heard that. He may have heard me say that, where none of the other guys
Yeah,
did.
well, that makes sense, right?
And so he was kind of
could
like,
see where you
oh,
might
that guy, that guy has a
Yeah.
question or has a comment, so I'm going to beeline over there and say, hey, look, it's a big field. We can all fly. I think he wanted us to go away. That's really what it sounded like.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I was only there for about 30 minutes.
As they home in on you. And plus the part that I like about your club is you guys have the loosest affiliation. You couldn't have a looser club, using the word, strangely, I'm making air quotes for our listeners if you can't see me. It's so loose, that it's, you have one person who puts out an email. Hey, we're meeting on Tuesday at 8:30.
Right.
That's about it. But anyway, you know what this reminds me of? A episode of Cheers. So if you guys remember, there was a time when the restaurant upstairs above Cheers started using Cheers more. They started bringing more people, like their people would go down there more, and it filled up the bar, and the bar became popular, really, really popular.
Right.
And so Norm and Cliff came out of the back. They were playing pool, and they come out, and they were like, Norm had lost, and so Cliff had to buy the beers or whatever, or somebody had to buy the beers. So they're walking up, and Norm's like, okay, what do you set us up? And he stops short because there was two people sitting in their chairs.
Seats. Yeah.
And Norm had a breakdown. He had a nervous break. He's like, I got to sit in my chair. Hey guys, we were sitting there, and he goes, well, we came up and we didn't see you. He goes, no, I'm talking about yesterday. I was sitting there yesterday, and they were,
Right.
the people were, the people were like, what do you mean you were sitting there yesterday? Well, we're sitting here tonight, nice to meet you. He goes, well, I'm Norm. And they're like, he goes, yeah, but I'm Norm. And they're like, oh, Norm, nice to meet you. I'm Jack, and this is Jill, and da-da-da-da-da. Norm just freaked out. And then all of a sudden he started convulsing and then falls down to the floor. And then everybody's like, oh my gosh, what happened? He fell down to the floor, and he jumps up and he jumps in the seat. And that's kind of like what this park thing kind of remind me of. You guys have been
You're
at
saying
the park
Mike is Norm?
ever.
Norm. I probably
Not,
am.
I'm
Mike
saying that
Norm?
the club, yeah, I'm just saying that the club guys are Norm, right? You guys are there all the time. You
Right.
have this set routine that you sit at this table. And then some new people come. They don't know that you're Norm. And they're just like, hey, we're just here to fly. And, you guys are all sitting over there just like looking like, they're in the middle of the field. Somebody should say something else, but they should just know. They should just know.
Well, I have to say that
and
our
how those
guys,
poor people
our
are gonna
guys could have
know.
just broke out. They could have just broke out and started flying over the top of these people, because we've done that before with the dog walkers, and the lady got all mad. But in this particular case, they had drones in the air, so nobody was going to fly it, because it's a very expensive. DJI has very expensive drones, and these look like very expensive drones, and we weren't going to take a foam, airplane and fly it into the drone and have to pay for it. So I think they were all standing around thinking that it was going to end any time now, and I just walked up kind of like, hey, what's the deal? So, kind of in closing for this particular topic, I basically test flew a couple airplanes and got it all, figured out, and then I had to take off, and I'm not really sure what happened after that, but it was an
All
interesting
right, well,
scenario.
okay, looking forward to hearing what the result of that was, if any kind of feedback came back from them.
I don't. Yeah, I'll have to ask and see if those guys had any other drama, but I was out of it once I kind of left. But it was interesting. So, but
Is this going to end up being like East Side Story,
West Side Story?
where,
Well,
not
no,
to say
East
the
Side,
cri-
because
the
Jay's,
West Side
Jay's
Story.
from a different part of town.
Jay's from the East Side, so what can I do?
That's right.
Yeah,
East Side.
He's from the East Side of Alaska.
West Side Story.
West Side Story. Yeah,
You
where
know?
we're all going to come in and
The two rival gangs as you're out there
No.
dancing.
No, that's not going to.
Well, I guess if
Having your
maybe
switchblade
that should be
fights.
part of our RC training is dancing too, so that you can do that properly
Yeah, maybe so. We could do that.
with the snapping.
So,
Synchronized snapping.
This last topic I want to kind of talk about, we're going to change our format a little bit, and we're going to try and kind of compact these, because we want more response from our listeners, and we're going to ask you to comment. But I ran into a pilot at the airport that flew an airplane. I went to the field. They flew the airplane. They had a really difficult time controlling the aircraft. And after all was said and done, we realized that they had a very huge misunderstanding about how Expo works.
Okay.
And I know we've had a whole.
What do you mean?
Well, they thought that if you want the airplane to settle down and fly more stable, you add more expo.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty common thing.
It is pretty common, and so once again, we're going to reach out to our listeners. We're going to ask them how do you explain to someone, right? Because I know what expo is, and I explained it to him, and he said he looked at me for 30 years. I have thought something totally different. That's what he told me. I've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, and I have never heard anyone explain it like you did. And I didn't really explain it as much as show him. I grabbed his radio, I put the expo in there, I moved the controls, and showed him what happens when the control goes to that 80% or 90%. Because it's much easier to see when nothing happens, and then bam, 90% you get full throw. After he watched that, he was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. That was amazing. And this other guy walked up, what's the matter? He goes, oh, Mike just showed me about the expo, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, if you want it to soften it up and it's having a hard time flying, you put more expo in it. And I just shook my head. I was just like, dude, this is 2 in literally 5 minutes that have the wrong understanding.
So when I first learned about expo, I thought it was someone told me that, you guys have seen me fly when I first started flying. I was kind of a jittery flyer.
Yeah.
Like I'd move the sticks a lot.
Right.
And so they talked about expo to remove that.
Right.
Because I tended to, and so it's not about really making the plane more stable, but to reduce the amount of my finger movement around. But I think it made it worse.
It did make it worse. You should actually address that with dual rates, not necessarily expo.
Change the throw distances
Correct.
Instead.
Change the throw down.
And that is exactly what someone showed me. And then I think I tried to implement expo based on that, and I realized it took me a couple of years to realize I wasn't flying very well, and the reason is because I get out to the edges of my expo, and that thing would just all of a sudden zing, and change direction or whatever. And it's like, oh man, that ain't working for me. That ain't working for me.
I don't know. It's I learned to fly without any expo. Nobody ever told me there was anything but expo when I started this.
Right. But dual rates makes more sense.
Dual rates is
from a
what you should start with.
Stabilizing or putting a stabilizer in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he had a gyro, but he thought the gyro was
or to take the jitter out, right?
Yeah. So, well, we are going to wrap it up for today. We're going to try a new 30-minute format. Tell us what you think. parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. That's our email. Or the Park Flyer Podcast Listeners Group, which is also on Facebook, which is growing daily. So if you guys are interested in, or actually, we want you to comment. We are asking you for a comment. So if you are anywhere in the world, we don't really speak a whole lot of languages, but we've got Google Translators. So go ahead and comment, and we'll try to use Google Translator, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But wherever you are in the world,
if you're really nasty,
we are number one in the Japanese translators.
That's true. We actually do have a Japanese translator.
Yeah, that's right.
That's fun.
But also, if you're really nasty,
fully fluent.
It's going to be I would say the response will be interesting. Let's just say that.
All right. So whether it's positive, negative, what you like, what you don't like, let us know what you thought of the drama at the field. Let us know what you thought about your expo comments, how you explain it to your guys. We are looking forward to your comments. Jump on the YouTube channel and comment on our YouTube page.
I'm going to start it out though. I don't like Jay's hat. I've been meaning to say this since I've seen that hat. I don't like it.
Well, it's too late now. Okay, look, there you go. Now he's got a new hat on.
Okay, that's much better. Much better.
All right, having said all that, I'm Michael from Arizona.
And I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I'm AK Mike in Texas.
All right, let us know what you think, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.